Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing our deep dive into this Georgia Bulldogs program heading into the 2024 season. We took a look at the offensive line, took a deep dive into the defensive line. Now we're taking a look at the offensive skill positions where Kirby Smart and this staff got very aggressive in the transfer portal, adding talent around Carson Beck. And I think Kirby Smart looked at this offense, looked at it, what it can be in 2024 with a quarterback like Carson Beck, who, I mean, for my money, is probably the best returning quarterback in college football, and said, we got to surround Carson Beck with the tools to really put together a special season. And I think he absolutely did that. Want to get into the running back room, the quarterback room, the wide receiver room, talk a little bit about what this Georgia offense from a skill position standpoint is going to look like in 2024. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And these deep dives have been just an absolute blast for me to do this offseason. I learn a ton from you guys in the comment section. We have a ton of good conversations in the comment section. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear what you guys think, your breakout players heading into 2024. I'm going to give you guys my leading receiver and leading rusher projection. Would love to hear what you guys have as well in the comment section. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to talk a little bit about what we saw from this unit in 2023. And I think it starts with just one of the best offenses that you saw in all of college football. And Kirby Smart will never admit this. I don't think a lot of Georgia fans will, but I'll say it as a Michigan fan. This Georgia offense, when they struggled, it really had to do with injuries. I mean, you go back to that Alabama game in the conference championship, Brock Bowers, probably not even 60%. Lab McConkey, probably not even 40%. And those were their two best, most dynamic pass catchers, really banged up. You had Amarius Mims banged up as well. This Georgia offense, when you look at the numbers on the season, when you go back and watch the film, was extremely dynamic. It could win on the ground. It could win through the air. It was one of the best offenses that we saw in the country heading into 2024. I think a lot of teams and a lot of fans are probably hoping that this Georgia offense takes a step back, losing Brock Bowers, losing guys like Lad McConkey. I look at it and say, I think this Georgia offense is going to be really damn good in 2024. I want to get into it. And it starts with Carson Beck. And I got to put my hand up real quick right at the start of this and say, I missed the boat on Carson Beck this offseason. The narrative when Carson Beck won the job out of fall camp for the Georgia Bulldogs was he's going to be a game manager. The reason why he won that job was he's not going to make the mistakes in this Georgia offense. And that's why Kirby Smart went with him. And I couldn't have been more wrong about that. And Carson Beck came in and was not just a game manager, was an absolute dude for this Georgia offense. And again, for my money, probably the best quarterback returning in all of college football. You look at the numbers, and 72% completion percentage, number 2 in the country, 9.3 yards per pass attempt, number 9 in the country. And top 10 in both those marks. What does that mean? It means you're completing a lot of the footballs you're throwing, but you're also pushing the ball down the field. Very impressive numbers. And then you turn on the film, and the caliber of throws that Carson Beck made, extremely impressive. Pushing the ball down the field, attacking the middle of the field, and most importantly, just in extreme command of this Georgia offense. And I think that's why he won the job in spring or in fall camp, and that's why he's one of the best quarterbacks heading into the 2024 year. Now, the next position group I want to look at, we normally take a look at the pass catchers first. I want to look at this running back room, a running back room that I am extremely excited about, and a running back room that last year, struggled with a lot of injuries and depth concerns. And it wasn't necessarily because the depth chart wasn't set. It was just this team was battling a lot of injuries at that running back position. You look at what this running back room looks like heading into 2024. It starts and stops with Trevor Etienne. And there's a reason Kirby Smart, this Florida Gator or this Georgia Bulldogs offense goes out and gets him. This is a guy that averaged almost 6 yards per carry in 2023 behind a Florida Gators offensive line that was absolutely dreadful. My question is, what does Trevor Etienne look like behind this Georgia Bulldogs offensive line? That is a massive step up from what the Florida Gators were working with. This is a guy that averaged 4 yards after contact per carry. That's more yards than a lot of running backs average just per carry. He was averaging that after contact. He absorbs contact well. He makes people miss at the second level. And I think one of the big X factors that doesn't really get talked enough about for Trevor Etienne, because he's such a good ball carrier as a running back, he's lethal out of the backfield catching footballs. I mean, I believe was targeted 22 times, caught 21 of those targets. And the phenomenal completion percentage when he's utilized out of the backfield. And you've seen Georgia have success with those kind of running backs, right? McIntosh, James Cook, and I'm not saying he's exactly like those guys, but you've seen Georgia have success with running backs that can make it happen out of the backfield as pass catchers. And then you start looking at the depth, and that was one of the bigger concerns we had with this Georgia team last year. I mean, you get Branson Robinson coming back from injury, a guy that I'm extremely excited about what he looks like year 3 getting back healthy. You have a guy like Roderick Robinson who is just, a physically imposing bowling ball. And I'm going to shout out true freshman Nate Frazier. If you ask me what running back out of the 3 running backs Georgia took in that 2024 class that's stepping up and being an immediate impact maker, I'm going with Nate Frazier coming from Mater Dei. This is just a complete running back that has elite movement skills. He has very good contact balance. This 4 or 5 running backs that I think Georgia has a lot of trust in heading into 2024, headlined by one of the best running backs in the country in Trevor Etienne. Now, you look at the pass catchers, and this is where a lot of opposing fans are hoping that Georgia takes a step back after losing guys like Brock, Ladd McConkey, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint. I thought was really impressive on the film when I was doing my deep dive. I'm really excited about this group. There's a lot of new faces that we have to talk about, and I want to start with Colby Young. 6'5", 215 pounds, coming from the Miami Hurricanes. And when he committed to Georgia, my first thought was, we haven't really seen Georgia have a true X receiver that can work vertically, use that imposing and big frame to work vertically down the field. We thought we had it with George Pickens, but he was really never healthy for that last year. And so Colby Young, I'm not saying Colby Young is exactly like George Pickens, but they have very similar skill sets. And Colby Young's a guy that I really think, and you can ask Miami Hurricane fans, just scratching the surface of what he can be. Transferred to Miami in the 2022 year, coming from the JUCO ranks. You saw the flashes. That 2023 year, you saw him take steps in the right direction. What does it look like in 2024? Colby Young, all the traits in the world. Georgia hasn't really had a kind of wide receiver like this in a long time. Really excited to see how they use Colby Young, who I think has tremendous upside. Then you bring in another guy in London Humphreys coming from Vanderbilt, who, this is a guy that I am really excited about. And I kind of think that Georgia has the plan of, I think London Humphreys is what they thought Arian Smith might be. London Humphreys running a 10.7 100-meter dash coming out of high school. He's got a nice frame. He tracks the ball extremely well at Vanderbilt as a true freshman. Again, in a not very good offense with not very good quarterback play, averaged 20 yards per catch. Gave it to Georgia a little bit. I'm sure Kirby Smart saw that on the film prep in that game and said, yeah, London Humphreys is the guy that we want on our team in 2024. He hits the portal. Kirby Smart goes and gets him. You got Colby Young in London, in London Humphreys that I think can work vertically down the field in kind of different ways, right? Colby Young, the big physical frame. London Humphreys, the burner who tracks the football really well down the field. And then you sprinkle in some other guys. I'm really excited about Dominic Lovett going into year 2 in this Georgia offense. You talk about 2 really good deep threats in Colby Young and London Humphreys that safeties really need to respect in terms of working down the field vertically on the boundary. I think that opens up the middle of the field for a guy like Dominic Lovett, who I think is really talented. I wish he got more opportunity in that Georgia offense in 2023. I think he probably leads the team in receiving yards. And I'll get to my predictions later. I think Dominic Lovett is poised for a massive year. You sprinkle in a guy like Ra Thomas. You sprinkle in a guy like Dylan Bell, who I'm not exactly sure. I was thinking about how I was going to say this. I would love to hear from Georgia fans on this one. I'm not sure how Dylan Bell is so good. He's not the biggest. He's not the fastest, but he's just so damn good. And I don't really know how to describe how he wins, but he just wins phenomenal with the football in the air, really good in those contested catch situations, but most of all, just a heady receiver. This is a guy that just always seems to make plays when the plays present themselves. And again, I'm not sure exactly how he wins. He's not the biggest, not the fastest, but he just gets it done. I really like this pass catching room in that wide receiver room, but make no mistake about it. You talk about the wide receivers. Every single year, Georgia uses their tight ends as difference makers in that passing attack. The first guy I want to talk about, the guy that we talked about yesterday, Benjamin Urasek, coming from Stanford. We talked about him yesterday, so we're not going to go deep into him. This is a matchup nightmare guy. This is a guy in 2021 as a true sophomore that I thought was one of the best tight ends in the country the last 2 years in that Stanford offense. Just did not get a lot of opportunity because the quarterback play stunk. The offense just stunk out loud. Benjamin Urasek comes into a perfect situation where Georgia knows how to use tight ends. They want to use tight ends. I think Benjamin Urasek is going to be a sleeping giant for this Georgia Bulldogs offense in 2024. And that's not disrespectful to a guy like Oscar Delp, who I think is definitely poised to have a massive year. You know, Georgia goes 12 personnel. They're going to use 2 tight end sets a lot. Ben Urasek, Oscar Delp. To spell them, you have Lawson Lucky, who I know Georgia fans are extremely excited about heading into year 2. And then true freshman Jaden Riddell. This is tight end U for a reason. They got 4 tight ends that I think start in a lot of Power 5 programs. I'm very excited to see how they use those tight ends, work in the middle of the field, being true difference makers in this passing attack. You start looking at this Georgia offense. The Georgia offense that averaged 40 points per game last year, that was 5th in the country. 7.1 yards per play, that was 4th in the country. You lose Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. You get Carson Beck back. You get really, I think you might upgrade this pass catching room in the transfer portal significantly. And again, that's not me saying you're not going to miss Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, but both of those guys were battling injuries for pretty much the whole season last year. If you stay healthy at this wide receiver, this pass catcher position, you stay healthy at the running back position, this is an offense that, I have a hard time seeing it take any sort of step back in 2024, especially if you kind of compensate for Carson Beck going into year 2. So I'm very excited about this unit. We're going to talk a lot more about it in spring. Next week, we have that defensive secondary coming up in our deep dive. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas again. A blast to talk about this program. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Talk to y'all later. Peace.